Okay.
Well, hi everybody, and welcome back to our day one of our focus week. And throughout the whole day, we've been talking about innovation, and that's innovation across the whole area of our industry, across end-to-end procure to pay, talking about how you can learn how to do things differently and provide sort of impetus to your organization. And I'm really pleased that next up we have Michael Ryan, and we're going to be talking about accelerating innovation in finance. And Michael Ryan is a director in finance transformation. But perhaps, Michael, you just want to introduce yourself to people who perhaps don't know who you are.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alan, and delighted to be part of Focus Week and to be talking about innovation, a subject very dear to my heart. I am a consultant. I've been a consultant for the last 20 years. Originally started my career in finance transformation back at Argos and Whitbread Beer Company. Then I moved to Deloitte, and then from Deloitte, I struck out as an independent. So for the last 10 years, I've been running transformation projects on an independent contract basis. In the last 2 years, I set up the brand Finance Transformation UK, from which has been the spin-off Finance Transformation magazine, which has been very successful and delighted with that. Innovation in itself. And yeah, live and breathe finance transformation. People are always ringing me up asking me how to change their finance functions, so quite happy to share.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Michael. So the perfect person to have on our conversation today and for our innovation day. And yeah, the magazine, if you haven't seen it yet, then click on to Michael's LinkedIn connection, which I'm sure he's happy to share with you, or just find him on LinkedIn. And you can see all the information about the magazine there. Great way to connect with people and to just to share our experiences, which I think that's part of the whole benefit of networks like ours and like yours as well, Michael, I think. But I don't know about you, but it seems like the world is speeding up sometimes in all sorts of directions, and particularly perhaps as a result of what's been going on over the last couple of years. But and I think, we're talking about accelerating innovation in finance, but for some people sitting in their organizations, there's a little bit of fear involved in that, I think, because sometimes as humans, we're a bit anxious about change and worried about it. And part of that, I think, is knowing where to start. And because, as you think, well, I'm in this organization, I want to make some changes, but where am I going to start in this complex organization where I'm really going to make a significant change that helps people? What would you say? I mean, presumably you've come across that kind of situation before. What would you say to people who are feeling that kind of fear?
Yeah, okay. Well, the most important thing with anything is that, and we probably actually live in the fastest paced era of human history. It changes from year to year. The technology that's thrown at us for us to live our lives day to day is constantly evolving. I'm at the stage where I'm glued to a Samsung phone because I've given up on trying to learn how to use an iPhone at 51 years of age. So the technology is passing me by on occasions when it comes to personally. So everybody feels fear when it comes to change. There's a nervousness and a trepidation around it. So when you're looking at organizational change, it's very, very important that the executive leadership set the tone and they set the framework in which change is going to be done and what their expectations are. But when you face into the unknown, or you face changing something, or you're challenged to come up with an idea to do something differently, it's very important that the environment has been created where you're allowed to fail. Okay, if you feel that you must get it right first time, and as a project manager for 25 years, nobody gets it right first time, you have to have that feeling from your executive leadership or that open support which says it's okay to try something. And that's as important for a person, for an individual trying to change an aspect of their life, as it is for an organization trying to change how its processes work. You won't get the best out of people unless you create an environment which eliminates fear, or at least severely reduces it.
So in that case, do you think that sometimes there's ever a point where that fear is justified? Can it sometimes actually be too late? You're looking for the starting point, but actually, similar to an iPhone, it's just too late. Can that ever be a case?
I don't think so. I think it's important to recognize when it comes to transformation programs that there is also the downside from an individual team perspective where there are redundancies involved. So the number one fear when it comes to change is that somebody actually loses their job. Now, what I've seen over the last couple of years is that firms are responding to, like they've responded to the pandemic, they're responding to climate change, they're responding to drivers, to transformation programs that have actually got nothing to do with headcount reduction.
Yeah.
They want a better service on behalf of their own customers and to fulfill their wider place in society. So the drivers for transformation programs are changing. And if you reduce the fear or the trepidation that people have, they will contribute. But you must create the environment that enables them to contribute. An awful lot of people manage on a top-down basis, and it's a tell, it's an instruct, so the culture of the organization has to evolve to the point where people feel it's perfectly okay to suggest an idea. And organizations do that. They, they'll put up continuous improvement boards. They'll put up opportunities for people to contribute to stuff. Do I think it's too late for anybody to start this? No, I don't. And I will eventually learn how to use an iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. And things change at different paces, don't they, depending on where your starting point is. But yeah, I believe you're right. That people and organizations can change if you've got that impetus and the drive and the need to do it. And I often think that innovation spins out of collaboration.
Yeah.
I mean, one, do you agree? And also, what can be done if you're sitting in an organization or if who you feel aren't collaborating enough? What can companies do, or can that person do who's sitting in a team and thinking, do you know what? I know that we would get more innovation if I talk to our suppliers more, or if we talk to other areas in the business more. You can sometimes feel isolated in a role. So what can be done as one for organization and person?
I have a slightly different take on that. So first of all, no matter what the challenge is, everybody associated with the challenge must understand and agree on what that challenge is. So if we agree what the problem is, so yes, I am an alcoholic, I must stop drinking, etc., 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 we can do something about the problem. We may have an issue in the end-to-end process between procurement and accounts payable, which is a typical good example and obviously relevant to your listeners. And we need both sides to appreciate that there is a problem, not for one side to ignore it. So getting to the point where everybody has an appreciation and a common agreed understanding of what the challenge is step one. Then after that, do you actually need collaboration in order to solve the problem? Well, yes, you do. Yeah. But could you actually come up with the answer in an isolated room on your own? Yes, you could. So it's one or the other. The soft soap and answer is always, if we all work together as a team, we would come up with a better result. That really does entirely depend upon the composition of the team. Some people, by their very nature, are introverted and quiet. They actually can be highly intelligent, very innovative, very imaginative, but they're not feeling that they can contribute. And in a team-wider workshop environment, they are shy. They won't contribute. So it comes back to the first question we had. If the leadership sets the tone as to what's feasible, what they're prepared to encourage, and so on and so forth, every leader, right the way down through an organization, has a responsibility to draw out the contribution of each of their team members. They could be the extroverted one, will always stand up and tell you, this is my opinion. Doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. But within that, you're then looking at 30 to 40% of people who are just afraid to speak because they've not been encouraged to throughout their careers. So creating a platform from which someone is actually prepared to open their mouth and share what's in them, and that will improve the more you encourage them to do it. They won't get it perfectly right the first time, but it'll improve. So yes, collaborative work environments are the buzzword, but I've often found that the answer to it is in the head of someone who doesn't normally speak. You have to draw it out of all of them. That's the responsibility of management.
And perhaps it's just like you're saying, then giving them the empowerment to do that, making them feel like anybody that's in that team able to speak, as you say. And I was reading a LinkedIn post yesterday about just the kind of thing that you're talking about there, how it is often the people who are the loudest who get their point across, and therefore sometimes get those promotions when they don't necessarily deserve them on the basis of those results. So you're right, you need to make sure that you're getting the ideas out of the people who are perhaps a little bit introverted in your team. And maybe it comes back to being that good leader that you're talking about, and properly understanding who's there, and who, if you've been involved in that recruitment process, who are you recruiting them, and who are you recruiting them to do what kind of role once they're there.
And just to play back to the first question on the responsibility of the executive C-suite in order to set the tone here, if you think of it in very simple terms, the reason why the Americans put a man on the moon was JFK said at the start of the 60s, America will put a man on the moon. He had no clue how they were going to accomplish it. He just quite simply encapsulated what he wanted, and then the brains trust of the entire nation went to work on delivering it. So leadership has a responsibility to stand up and crystallize what it is they want to achieve. I want a purchase to pay process which is paperless. I want a purchase to pay process which is touchless. I want all my suppliers paid on time. They just got to do it and create it. And sometimes the objective is that simple, and then everybody knows what their role is in contributing towards that, and can put forward, if you put the right culture in place, an idea and a suggestion.
Yes, I mean, good point. I mean, we're talking about accelerating innovation here in finance, and I think it depends, doesn't it? We talk about the idea or the concept of accelerating, but that's going to be different depending on what your organization is like and where you're at any particular point, because one person's innovative idea is somebody else's process they've been doing already for a year or more. So I suppose within that context, what are the trends that you're seeing that are most successful in terms of being innovative within your finance or procure to pay team?
Okay, I'll give you some examples in a minute. I think it's important to put across that accelerating innovation or bringing about innovation, which was what it is in most instances, because most companies are not innovative. They're not all Google and Facebook and LinkedIn. There's a whole tranche of businesses that employ the entire nation beneath that. When you want to create innovation for people, obviously you create the right environment and all the rest of it. You set the target, you set the tone, but you need to create something which enables them to think. As I said to you on the previous question, people think collaboration and team environments drive out the best results. They don't. I'm not convinced of that, and I've been doing this for a long time. What it needs is, you need to carve out thinking time. All the best leaders say that they go away to reflect. It's like when they go on their holidays and they're on the beach and they have a light bulb moment and they have an idea. Your staff and team members are the same. They have to have the opportunity to reflect and take in what's going on and think about what they would do differently, rather than actually just constantly keep cranking the wheel. And that reflection time is actually what leads to the majority of light bulb moments. It's like Newton under the tree. The apple fell on him. He wasn't working at the time, was he? So, you need to carve out thinking time. And the older I get, the more I realize that it's not action and movement. It's reflection and thought that gives the best ideas. And so that's, it's probably counterintuitive, because a lot of people think, we must all work as a team in order to come up with the best ideas. If you consider who the biggest innovators in the world are, they're just the likes of Elon Musk and so on and so forth. They're not team players. They blaze their own trail. So you need to create an environment which encourages people to think.
Perhaps I sit on the fence somewhere with that. I think you need people to do that, and you also need people who are going to share those ideas, and I think you can't really do that unless you collaborate with other people. But I think you're absolutely right. You need somebody to carve out that thinking time in the first place and have those innovative ideas. We can't all be those entrepreneurs or Isaac Newton. We can't all be that.
I think there's a distinction between creating the environment and the reflective time for you to think of the idea, and then to implement the idea. To implement the idea requires collaboration. To come up with the idea doesn't. You can do it in the sun lounger.
We'll be waiting for your innovative idea. Have you had your holiday yet, Michael?
I have. I spent 2 weeks in Portugal.
Lovely.
Well, like all Irishmen, I got a great tan.
We'll be waiting for the output of that then.
Okay. You asked me as the tail end of that question of innovations in finance. I would say the majority of innovations are in the payment space, to be honest with you. You're probably in the most interesting process. There's obviously a plethora of solutions. And one of the challenges that an awful lot of my clients face is, oh, there's so many different options. What do we do about it? So it's like the iPhone. Can I keep up with the latest version of the iPhone? And all people can do is keep themselves abreast of the latest developments through attending forums such as this, attending conferences and so on. But it's a lot to take in, to be perfectly honest with you. And then the whole due diligence process around which solution you go with and all the rest of it. But I seldom see really true innovation in the sense of, well, somebody shows me a completely and totally groundbreaking idea, something completely new. I seldom see that. In fact, I'm part of about 3 different think tanks who are trying to come up with one, and no matter how intelligent they think they are, I still haven't seen something I haven't seen before.
There's something else, but perhaps it's just implementing different concepts in a faster, more efficient way, or introducing it to a business who hasn't seen that or been able to do that as yet. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and their, I guess, innovative idea was based around rationalizing, what they already have, and then becoming a little bit more lean in the process. So, is it innovation or is it a continuation? And perhaps we have to just do things we set, like you're talking about the man on the moon. Perhaps you've got to set that as a goal and then take those baby steps there, and that in itself can be innovative.
And the government, from a leadership perspective, the government has a responsibility to set some similar goals relative to how businesses actually operate. We should be all paperless or touchless or whatever.
Well,
but encapsulating that in something that we could all do is, it will be useful.
I mean, but I think that parts of Europe and the rest of the world are sort of heading that way in terms of e-invoicing, aren't they? And the e-invoicing mandates that we're seeing. And in fact, I'm going to be going to the Exchange Summit in Lisbon, which is on next week, and I'll be hearing all about the ideas and concepts around interoperability and how that can affect. So perhaps that's something that we can do a little bit more of over here as well. Now, we've all heard the expression "data is the new oil." I mean, it's something we've been hearing about for some time, and I think I don't know if you'll agree, but I think a lot of that surely will be based around the idea that we're so much in the cloud now, more than we were, and those SaaS solutions that we have in our personal lives and our business lives. But if we're thinking about that as data as the new oil, do you think we'll ever see a time when we are 100% in the cloud?
I would say yes. I'd say, like anything, if you'd asked me 5 years ago would I even consider buying an electric car, I'd have said no. And by the end of, I don't know, 2025, half the world will have considered buying themselves an electric car. Personally, I still love my diesel, but don't tell anybody.
We won't.
As with all things, including the Apple iPhone, you start off with, I'm not touching it. It's like I always said, I'd never use an Apple Mac, the PC version of this. No, couldn't change that at this stage. And the other half of the world uses one. So yes, can we all be in the cloud in a couple of years' time? Yes, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose it goes back to the beginning, the first question, talking around fear, isn't it? We can't help being a little bit frightened of things that we have no experience of, I think. And now that we're all so used to just going on various sites, booking flights, going on holidays ourselves, then we just get very used more in our business worlds as well. And I think the technology's moved on as well in terms of being more compliant and safer, and people feel that fear then goes away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so do you think, we're talking about accelerating innovation in finance, do you think that you can actually do anything to make your team or make yourself more inquisitive as a person? And I know you've talked about those think tanks that you're a member of. Is there anything that organizations can do to become more innovative or more creative, perhaps?
I would say it's 2 things. One, go external for an external view. Nobody ever tells themselves the truth. Look in the mirror in the morning. You always need somebody else to paint a picture for you as to what stage you're at. So you're complete and total starting position. And indeed to challenge your ideas. So an external third-party view on what you're doing to create an innovation center or to foster an innovation culture is a good thing. And then the ideas themselves should be sifted through clinically, because if they're not going to add to the business, then there's no sense in continuing with them. But definitely the third party view is the most important thing. I have seen companies who've actually created what they've called innovation centers. But in my opinion, they didn't expand their thought process enough. So I think there is a real need for what's an overused phrase, a thought leader in the innovation area, because thinking and using your mind to its fullest extent to come up with ideas and to sift through them is almost, it's a discipline in itself. And when your primary objective is to turn up at 9 o'clock and go home sometime around 5 and get through as much as what you need to get through during the day, you're not blue sky thinking. So you need the environment, you need the challenge, and you need to accept that just as data is the new oil, thinking, although we've all been doing it since we were born, needs to be refined.
No, that's a very good point, and in fact, it makes me think of the one of the barriers that always come up when we run our surveys. One of the barriers to, we're talking about it in terms of of automation, but it can obviously refer to other factors as well, such as just culture or process. Is that people say that they're happy with the things that with the way that things are already, and I think that that can sometimes be an issue, can't it? If you're sitting in an organization or a department and you feel like everything's fine as it is, then you're not challenging yourself. And I think that when you're not challenging yourself, it's hard to move forward, isn't it, and not grow. And so do you think that can help if you've got an innovation center with someone actually in charge of that?
For me, this always comes back to something that upsets people, and it's encapsulated in benchmarking. If you run a business, you run it for a reason, to service whoever your customers are 99% of the time in a profitable manner, right? Now, if you can't measure what you're doing, you can't improve it. So what I find in a lot of organizations I go into, they've never measured what they're doing. And so they don't know how effective and how efficient they are, or the flip side, that they're not. And none of their staff do either. So if you don't have context, and I find that context has just been missing in an awful lot of these discussions. So somebody will rock up and tell you AI is the answer to all your problems, blah, 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 blah. And you tell them, well, actually, I'm sorry, pal, but there's only 5 FTE in the AP process. So no matter what you're going to do, you're not going to save me an awful lot. So context is important, not just between 2 third parties, but internally. Every manager should be teaching their staff how you actually measure the process that they're in, so they know what they're contributing to. And that's something that's a skill set missing in the majority of middle managers, and a step that's just not performed.
And absolutely, I mean, I think that it is very hard to know anything about anything, isn't it, unless you're looking at it, and sometimes I'm comparing as well, comparing with peers, and also comparing with past performance as well. And if you're not looking at that, then it's very difficult to have a handle on anything that you're doing, really, isn't it? So I think sometimes finance in particularly gets a little bit of a bad rap in terms of maybe the people within them being a bit staid and cautious. Do you think that that's because, in terms of being innovative, do you think that's fair? And do you think that there's a time and a place for those kind of attributes in the kind of work that we do?
I think, to be honest with you, the impression of the accountancy finance profession has evolved massively since I joined it back in the 90s. And an awful lot of the people who end up actually running businesses, they have come through a finance background. So the older staid impression of what finance people are like is probably in need of a serious revision. But they have within their DNA a general air of cautiousness and risk averseness, because they are tasked with measuring how the company is performing to ensure that the company continues to exist. So do these people lack innovation? I don't think so, to be honest. I think in order to come up with ideas, anybody can come up with an idea. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are, an idea is an idea. In terms of whether you can implement it, it helps if you're slightly more experienced. Do accountants generally come up with good ideas to improve their own processes? In my experience, no, they don't. because the majority of them are killing themselves, working Excel to death one day after the other, ordering late night pizzas and never stepping back to see how we could do this better.
Yeah, perhaps they just need that breakaway. They need their moment in the sun or under a tree with an apple about to fall on them, don't they? Need that time away. So you've been in finance for some time. You must love it. Tell us why you stayed in the profession. What do you love about it?
Well, I've been in it since 1996, I think, 95, 96, so about 25, 26 years. It has evolved massively in that period of time. I obviously have evolved as well and matured as you do, as you gain more experience. It's always been challenging, and so there's always a challenge to face, which makes it interesting. Some of those challenges are the same as they were 25, 26 years ago. It's just the badges on the products have changed. And at the end of the day, the bulk of this comes down to people relationships and interrelationships in teams. Teams can have the very best piece of software, and you can have two people who just can't stand one another, so they can't work together. At the end of the day, it's how you interact with people, how you manage people while they interact with each other, and how you can motivate and galvanize a team. It doesn't matter whether you're motivating and galvanizing a football team or a finance team. You know, the approach is the same, to inspire people to do work. And I find I spend the majority of my time listening to people's problems and guiding them through what they can do about them.
And that's the thing, isn't it? There's never a dull moment, is there? I don't think you can say that you've had a moment where you've been sitting there thinking, what am I going to do now?
I've never been bored doing this. Never.
And that's the thing, isn't it? If you can be somewhere where it's interesting, exciting, then I think, and also add value as well, which clearly that you do, then I think that you know, it's an interesting and exciting place to stay, isn't it? I mean, the future is exciting as well. So on that note, to end talking about innovation and excitement in terms of the future, have you got any sort of top tips that you want to share with people and things that they can do in their organization today? Anyone listening now and thinking, do you know what, actually we don't have access to an innovation center or the kind of leadership qualities that you were talking about, what would you say to them?
Okay, well, without repeating everything I said since the start, if you're in that type of organization, what I do is I turn to the management and say, we're taking half a day. Take a half a day in the third week of the month. So nobody can complain as to what's being done period end wise or the previous month end balance sheet reconciliations. We're taking half a day, and we're either going to take over the canteen or the biggest open environment in the business. And we're going to have a good honest chat with ourselves and see if we can air our problems and come up with a few ideas. With no rules, nobody running the session, and let's actually just see what people can come up with when they are allowed and treated as adults to just talk.
I love that idea. That's a really good idea. And if anyone's listening doesn't do anything like that already, that's
I'll run it for you.
That's a top tip from Michael. He's going to be coming around to your organization. Just go onto his LinkedIn, book a meeting. That's great. Thanks very much, Michael. And it's been great talking to you and sharing some of your insights with everybody today. So that's been fantastic. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. And so thanks everybody else.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody for listening to us today throughout the course of the day as well, for all of our topics on innovation and downloading some of the research information that we have for you today as well. And I hope you join us tomorrow for our Career and Leadership Day, where we'll be talking obviously on those topics and also to some of our fabulous award winners as well, and looking at the background into why they won some of those awards they did at our P2P Transformation Summit. So fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.